That's sick. It has been the best part of 8 years since the release of Battlefield 4, a rocky time for the game which many players would rather forget. However, 7 years and 7 months later, the game that was in such a dire state entertains tens of thousands of players every single day. How is it that Battlefield 4 has stood the test of time despite overwhelming competition like Warzone, Fortnite and Apex Legends? In this video, I will be taking a look at the reasons why Battlefield 4 remains unbeaten still to this day and why it may just very well be unbeaten for the foreseeable future. Just before we begin, I would like to ask you to consider subscribing to help my channel off the ground. I would be hugely grateful for your support and you'd be a massive legend for doing so. So let's begin by winding the clocks back to 2013 and start at the beginning. I was a 13-year-old kid on his family Xbox 360 who had never played a Battlefield game or even heard about it. However, upon seeing the marketing material for Battlefield 4, I knew instantly that this game was going to be one that I would enjoy. The vehicles, explosions, weapons, all aspects of the game came together to create the perfect storm. The next day at school, I informed my friends of this game's existence, and after about a month of saving, we had bought it with our pocket money. I vividly remember camping the elevators on Hanen Resort for hours, having an absolute blast. Being overjoyed when I saw my name in the top 10 of the leaderboard, and running my quad bike into my friends and jumping off at the last second to team kill them. I wish they hadn't removed that dice, please. However, despite all the potential that this game had, there was a massive problem. Bugs, and lots of them. The game was practically infested, being unplayable at times. DICE and EA again found themselves in hot water as they had so often been in before due to the rushed release of a Battlefield title in an incomplete state. At this point in the game's life cycle, the future seemed bleak as many players outright quit the game, never to return in protest of its state. Now this brings me to my first point, and probably the main reason why Battlefield 4 has been able to survive for so long, and that is the countless hours of work put in by various DICE personnel in improving the state of the game through the CTE, or Community Test Environment. One particular example I'd like to use of this is the infamous netcode patch. It was a common occurrence to be shot behind cover or trade kill in Battlefield 4 due to poor synchronization. This would become known as bad netcode in the Battlefield community, and then eventually in the gaming community as a whole. 8 months from the release of Battlefield 4, the netcode update dropped, serving as what is probably the single biggest gameplay improvement in Battlefield 4's lifetime.
Secondly, we test shooting, counting the frames between the first frame of visible firing to the first muzzle flash or taking damage on the other side. The average time for shooting was around 14 frames, about 238 millisecond delay between players. Let's see how this compares to the netcode patch. In comparison, the delay has dropped to approximately 9 frames or 150 millisecond delay. All in all, about a 62% improvement in delay reduction.
Despite being met with open arms by desperate players, for many it was too late and the damage had already been done. However, over the years the CTE was pretty much single-handedly responsible for bringing BF4's basic mechanics out of the gutter. In some cases, the work done on the CTE was so profound that it was in fact industry-leading, leading to smooth, consistent and predictable Battlefield 4 build that we all use today. So the foundations are there. The game performs well, you can enjoy the game without these issues now. But how does playing the game for years at a time not get boring, you might ask? Well, this brings me to my second point, gameplay. Battlefield 4 is not your average Call of Duty type shooter with predictable engagements, limited scope and an average player age of 10 years old. It has depth, variety and most importantly, scope. I never understood the term sandbox when applied to games until recently when I googled it out of curiosity. I might sound patronising for a minute now as I'm going to read it out, and I'm sorry for that, but this definition describes Battlefield 4 perfectly. A video game in which the player is not constrained to achieving specific goals and has a large degree of freedom to explore, interact with or modify the game environment. Now, this is Battlefield 4 in a nutshell to me. Large maps, freedom of playstyle and destruction, to name a few examples. Add to this unique and interesting gun or vehicle play, and you have a recipe for a classic. It can't be denied that the lack of competition from other Battlefield games has contributed to Battlefield 4's longevity. In my opinion, Battlefield belongs in the present day, and to neglect this setting for 3 consecutive games is a gross oversight from EA. I, for one, could say that after playing Battlefield Hardline and Battlefield 1, I got pretty tired of these gimmicky settings, and chose to not even bother with Battlefield 5 after the shambles of a reveal, and I'm glad I did, by the way. The state of the shooter market must also be considered when analysing the apparent eternal Battlefield 4, as it is also playing a role. PUBG entered the scene in March of 2017, popularising the Battle Royale game mode. Shortly after, Fortnite, Apex Legends and Warzone followed, and the shooter market had gone completely Battle Royale mad. Even Battlefield 5 had its own Battle Royale mode, Firestorm. For me, the novelty of Battle Royale wore off quickly, and I came to loathe the state of the shooter market. There seemed to be no escape from these Battle Royales in sight, so I figured the natural solution was to go back to a game that I was familiar with, and that I knew would entertain me, Battlefield 4. Now you're thinking at this point that I have just undermined my whole point, and that Battlefield 4's longevity is due to market conditions. But that's where you're wrong. The shooter market is still, to this day, being dominated by Battle Royales and seemingly lackluster Call of Duty on the cards for 2021. Battlefield 2042 is the only hope for players who seek a more classic shooter, let alone Battlefield experience. The issue with this is putting all of your eggs in one basket. What if Battlefield 2042 does not live up to the hype? After all, this is, more often than not, what happens in the video game industry. Remember Cyberpunk. What if 2042, like its predecessors, deviates from the classic Battlefield structure that Battlefield 4 so religiously followed? What game will players like me or you play? The new Call of Duty? Warzone? I don't think so. The only option for me is Battlefield 4, with its reliably enjoyable gameplay without the drawbacks of gaming in current times, such as loot boxes and microtransactions, to name a few. Now don't get me wrong here, I'm not predicting 2042 to be a failure straight out of the gate. Rather, I'm taking stock of current gaming trends and concluding that developers and publishers can no longer be trusted to put the consumer first and produce a player's game opposed to a corporate cash grab. Battlefield 4 is by some means an end of an era, the end of the traditional DLC-based business model and the start of the dreaded Battle Pass model. This marks the loss for the consumer and the win for the corporation. What a game to end this era with. Thanks Battlefield 4 for the countless hours of fun and countless more to come.